So welcome back to the podcast for the International Fire Marshals Association. I'm your host, Robbie Dawson. For the past 3 years, a group of IFMA past presidents have gone back and reviewed the annual chapter reports in an effort to select one chapter to recognize for their efforts to support their members, their communities, as well as the IFMA mission. And in a recent episode, past presidents Ron Farr and Steve Peavy talked about some of the challenges of how they selected those chapters of the year and how those chapters will get selected in the future. So I'd encourage you to go back and check that out. But in 2026, they did select a chapter, and that is IFMA chapter number 11, the Fire Marshals Association of Minnesota, for this award. And I'm going to read a little bit from the award declaration that we did at the chapter presidents meeting back in June. This year's recipient is an integral member of a statewide coalition that includes fire chiefs and fire department organizations, the State Fire Marshal's Office, and other safety associations in their state. This coalition has been instrumental in legislative efforts to protect fire and building codes, prevent the expanded use of consumer fireworks, improve funding for statewide fire service assessments, and enhanced penalties for those convicted of assaulting fire and EMS personnel. They also continue to work closely with the State Fire Marshal's Office to develop community risk reduction tools to include assessments and enhanced use of historical data for local departments to improve the development of their local CRR plans. They also collaborate with their State Building Officials Association to support a 5-day annual conference to encourage collaboration between code officials and of all disciplines. They are a small but obviously a very mighty group. They only have 115 active members and 8 life members, and they were lucky enough to be in person at the chapter president's meeting this year to receive this award. And joining me today to talk a little bit more about their chapter and the work they do in Minnesota is Lisa Consie, the fire marshal from the city of Duluth, Minnesota. Lisa, good to see you.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And you're the vice president of the Fire Marshals Association of Minnesota, and you were the representative, the official representative at the chapter meeting in Vegas. So you were there to accept that award on behalf of the association. But also with you was also one of our IFMA board members, Tom Pitschneider, from the Fire Marshal's Office from Shakopee, Minnesota. Is that right? Did I pronounce that one right?
Yep.
Been on the IFMA board a couple of years now, and interestingly enough, didn't know anything about this award until the day we were getting ready to give it. The past presidents do their work and they select, and the day I announced it to the board, you weren't able to be on that meeting, so it was fortuitous that you weren't there, and I think you might have been just as surprised as Lisa was in Las Vegas. So thank you both for being here, and thanks for sharing this. Let's start with you, Lisa, and give me just a little bit of background about yourself and your fire marshal's office and Duluth. Tell me a little bit about Duluth, Minnesota.
Sure. I have been in the fire marshal office about 4.5 years now. I came from the rigs, so I was in the operations division as a captain on an engine company and decided to jump into code work. It's been a different world, I'll tell you. Here in Duluth, we are the largest inland port on the Great Lakes on Lake Superior. We have a sister city across the bay from us, Superior, Wisconsin, so we're often known as the Twin Ports. Our main things here in Duluth are shipping, tourism, and we collect a lot from the mines up north, which leads into the shipping part. So we have a lot of railroad that comes into our port as well. So it's a busy city. We're about 88,000 or so. We're about the 5th largest city in Minnesota. So we get a lot of people coming from north and from south coming up to enjoy the lake. It's a diverse population, and I love living here on a big hill, especially in the winter.
Well, I've been through Duluth a couple of times, heading up to Minnesota and Ely and the Boundary Waters and points north of there. It is gorgeous country, but I'll take my trips in June, July, and August if that's okay with you. I'll more of a warmer weather type. So, Tom, how about you? Real quick, what's life like for you in Shakopee? Am I saying that right? It's pronounced
Shakopee.
Shakopee, and
Yep. It's got an Indian heritage.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask.
Yep.
What's life in Shakopee, Minnesota, like for you?
So we just transitioned recently to pretty much a full-time career fire department. We had been volunteer paid on call for many years, so I actually started in this crazy business back in 1985, so this is my 43rd year of Fire service, fortunately I'm not riding the rigs anymore, so I don't have to carry around the air pack, but I've been in the code official spot since beginning of 2000, so this is my 26th year in the code side. It is right now me, myself, and I in what I call a one-clown circus show. I've got about 48,000 population. Shakopee is what we consider the entertainment capital of Minnesota. We have Valley Fair, which is a family amusement park. We have Canterbury Park, which is the horse racing facility. We have the Minnesota Renaissance Festival in our response area. We have a brand new 19,000 seat outdoor amphitheater in my response district just next to Canterbury Park. And on top of that, we're next to the largest Indian casino in Minnesota in Prior Lake. So prior to the amphitheater, we were bringing about 12 million people through town every year on an annual basis. So it's a crazy little world. We've grown more than double since I started in 2000. So we went from about 20,000 people to that 48,000 mark. So looking at existing buildings is not very often done. I'm looking at a lot of new stuff and trying to make sure we get it right the first time. So.
Yeah, getting your foot in the door early on is certainly a big deal. So
absolutely.
Being a one-person shop, I'm sure you work about 173 hours a week, looking at all the stuff that goes on there.
I really feel like I do. Living here and working here, I pretty much adopt the city 24 hours a day. So.
Yeah. Lisa, how about you? What's the staffing like in the fire marshal's office in Duluth? How many folks do you got, and what type of roles do they fill?
So there's me in the fire marshal role. Underneath me, I have 2 deputy fire marshals and a fire inspector. I also have someone on the civilian side that works underneath me that does fire sprinkler plan review and fire alarm review and inspection for those as well. So we're a small but mighty office as well. We have a lot. Not only do we do new construction, but we also do 3-year operational permit inspections. So every business in town gets an operational permit inspection every 3 years.
So you are getting in those existing buildings, so to speak. One of the challenges Tom's got, I'm sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Minnesota Association. I kind of outlined some of the achievements over the last couple of years. Lisa is the vice president, with Tom being a president. How did you get involved in that group, and what drew you into there, and what benefits do you see to those who are in Minnesota who might be members of the association?
What drew me in was training, actually. I received an email about IFMA and some quarterly training opportunities, and I thought, I'm new to the gig. I'm gonna scope it out. And Tom welcomed me as a new Northern member with open arms, and so did everybody else. And it was just such a wonderful group. I think within the next month I was in and joined. So now I have taken over providing and finding some of that quarterly training, which is kind of ironic because that's what brought me in. So I'm hoping to do the same for others, is bring people in with good quarterly training.
Well, are you delivering that in person quarterly, or is that more of a virtual now? Which way are you doing it?
Both. So we offer an in-person, usually in the Twin Cities metro area somewhere, and then a virtual option for people like me in the northern country that can't always take the drive to the cities. So it oftentimes is both. In September, we offer an in-person conference, which kind of gets all of our members and extras in the code enforcement fire world together, which is pretty awesome.
Great. Well, Tom, like I said, the association is a small group. How were you lucky enough to draw Lisa into this, and what kind of bait did you use to get some new folks into the organization to get her into working with the association and doing some of the work there?
I think a lot of it is just networking, trying to find those new people when they come online. As new people are hired, we kind of hear through the grapevine who starts where. We're trying to do a little bit more marketing of the group to different aspects. We just did a challenge coin, which those of you who are in Vegas that were at the the chapter president's meeting did see both that and the pin that we did. We're taking the lapel pin to our Chiefs conference and some of our other state conferences as a way to kind of market the Fire Marshals Association of Minnesota and what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get out there and get in front of people, trying to offer stuff on a little bit bigger scale. That's why we started trying to do some of the training virtually also, so we could get our outstate people. It's a significant drive to the borders, especially northeast and northwest in Minnesota, and to come down for an hour or 2 hour training just doesn't make sense for people. So we really want to try to get that out and make that valuable, and we're trying to bring some different levels of training and different ideas out there for members to get part of.
Gotcha. And this question really can be for either of you. You mentioned integrating or building that relationship with the Fire Chiefs Association. How has that been? What kind of barriers did you find, or did you find any at all? And what do you think of some tips and tricks that other fire prevention associations can do to get engaged with their fire chiefs counterparts?
I think, at least from my side, it's building those relationships, getting to know who those people are. When the MinFAC team really came together, the Minnesota Fire Advisory Group that we created to work on funding, we really focused on one thing, and that was getting money to support Minnesota Fire Service in one way or the other. So we were able to bring those groups together between the Minnesota Fire Chiefs, the Minnesota Fire Department Association, the arson investigators, and the fire marshals, and fund a legislative group that could be at the Capitol supporting different items. So that's really how we got our start and really started working together, was on that MinFAC group and trying to get everybody, a common page where we're all going to the legislature at the same time for the same things. Part of that is also the Minnesota professional firefighters are in that, so we try to work closely with them to make sure that we've got a common legislative agenda, so we're not trying to basically stab each other in the back because one side wants something and the other side doesn't. So we really try to focus on stuff that benefits all the fire service. There's obviously some clear issues between part-time paid-on-call rural fire departments and full-time career metro departments. So there are some splits there on different focuses that they look at each legislative session, but we try to focus on what's going to be the best for fire service and everybody related in Minnesota overall.
Lisa, anything to add to that and how that relationship has been evolved over your term?
From a personal standpoint, I am a member of the Chiefs Association, and so building those relationships with other chiefs and trying to show them how the code world influences the operations world is a big thing. So we recently had some legislation go through about single stairway, for example. So one of my deputies ended up on that, representing the Minnesota professional firefighters. So I think it's important for the code world people to be involved in those other associations like MPFF, like fire chiefs, educating, and we're all working for that same common goal, like Tom said.
It's interesting. In my past job, I kind of got involved in that legislative piece, and when I got there, it was very interesting because you had fire prevention officers associations, chiefs, professionals, volunteers in different camps, and it seemed like the legislators would use the differences between us as their excuse to go, we can't support that because these others aren't in it. And then once we all got together and at least understood and maybe could say, hey, we agree with them, I think it was a huge benefit. Do you think that's part of why you had so much success within that? I mentioned the bill around firefighter and EMS personnel being assaulted and fireworks and those other things. How much of that do you think you would have gotten through if these relationships weren't there?
Lisa, you want to take that one first?
I was leaning towards you. Even on that one, I think it was important too to include some of our law enforcement friends. So I know some of their lobbying groups were also helping for us because they have those laws already in place. And so again, relationships with other organizations, even outside the fire service, are super important when that kind of thing comes around. Yes.
Yeah, I definitely think having a unified face at the Capitol has done us great things over time. As we said, this year there was a lot of bad bills, but none of them made it out of the legislature. So a lot of that is us being there and our lobbyists being there working on our behalf and watching. We get, every 2 weeks, we get an updated spreadsheet of all the bills that are introduced that may have a fire service effect on them. and then a group gets together and kind of ranks those and says, yes, this is one we want to support, this is one we don't want to support, and then the ones we're neutral on. And there's a lot of local funding issues that come up at the legislature. We don't tie into anything that's a local base, but looking anything from fireworks, single stairs, private inspections, funding for the fire marshal's office. There's a lot of stuff that the legislature touches every year that we really need to be involved in, and having this coalition, I think, really keeps us all in the same group working together.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's the Minnesota Fire Advisory Group. I hope I got that term right. And you also mentioned funding it. Is that group funded through the member associations, or is that group funded from another source?
No, this group got the legislature to pass a tax on your fire insurance. So it basically applies to any fire insurance that's issued in the state of Minnesota. There's a small carve out, I believe, for township mutual insurance that has a Minnesota base. That's really the only carve out of it. But it's 0.65% of the gross premium on a property that's collected and then given to the state. It's put in a dedicated fund. We've worked very hard to get that in a dedicated fund and keep it in a dedicated fund. That number has changed a little bit. It did drop to 0.5% a few years ago, and we were able to, 2 legislative sessions, get it back up to 0.65. But that brings in roughly, let me get to my other sheet here, roughly about $20 million a year.
That is not chump change
not
right
chump
there,
change
not at all.
And then that is split up between the state fire marshal's office is funded with that. The Board of Education and Training is funded by that. So that board takes care of all the licensing of career firefighters in Minnesota and keeps track of some of our training information. They also reimbursed fire departments for firefighter training, so my department can have a class, we can submit the cost of that class, and then we're reimbursed up to a threshold of roughly about $150 or $200 per firefighter that comes back from that funding. A percentage of it goes to the state, to the fire marshal's office, to do our state hazmat teams, our special incident teams. We have a group between St. Paul and the Minnesota State Patrol that's an air rescue team. So they actually fly out, they'll drop a firefighter down, they'll hang them from a rope and pluck somebody out of the woods somewhere. They are all over the place. I've had them in my jurisdiction. I know Lisa's had them up in her area. We've fund the bomb squads in the state through that. So we've got a lot of different dollars going different places, but we appropriate about $17 million a year to those different groups. So.
Yeah, like I said, not chump change, and certainly an interesting source. And I think it's not an uncommon source where there's little tweaks to insurance premiums that support those kind of things across the U.S.
Yeah, our biggest challenge, Robbie, has been when economies get tight, legislatures start looking for money, and they see a big pot of money sitting here, and that's a big fight for us to watch every year that our account doesn't get raided for other purposes.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing battle. You're exactly right. Hey, look at this over here, and maybe we can swipe a few dollars out of that to fund something else for sure.
Yep, it's a shiny gold pot. So.
That's right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the association in Minnesota. And Lisa, what do you think is the current challenges associated with maintaining that type of an organization and maybe even growing it? What do you see are the challenges, and maybe what are some things you're doing in Minnesota that are helping combat those challenges?
One of the challenges I see is actually just outreach, getting out of the metro area. That typically is where most of our fire marshals and staff departments are. And so reaching out to the smaller ones that might have just a fire marshal and volunteers on the operations side is a little tough. So I've been trying to do that, especially on the northern part of the state. I'm trying to get some training together and have it outside of the metro area so that we can draw in hopefully some of those others. I'm working on some stuff here in Duluth with a local airplane manufacturing company, Cirrus, hoping that maybe they'll host us as a group and we can do a walkthrough of their facility would be kind of interesting, I think. A couple other different ideas like that. So I'm hoping to bring those in next year and maybe draw in more members to our group.
Okay. Tom, what about you? What do you think the more seasoned, I won't use senior, but the more seasoned members of the association need to do to make it more appealing for those newer members to come in?
I think a lot of it is marketing the group and providing them something that they feel is beneficial. We do a quarterly newsletter that goes out, so that goes out just before our quarterly meetings. So we have that. We've got an email blast list that we send stuff to. So I will send updates from NFPA, ICC, and different organizations out to that mail list, just to kind of keep them informed of what's going on, different opportunities, different trainings. We're trying to develop a few more training sessions and try to keep the cost low so we can get, not necessarily make money off them, but at least expose FMAM and what we're capable of to more people. One of the challenges here is we've got a lot of small volunteer fire departments with just a chief and no code people, and trying to reach out to them and say, hey, we're a resource if you need something. Feel free to try to touch base with us, send us a question, let us know. The State Fire Marshal's office does have several emails where you can send them questions and they'll respond back. We just kind of want to be in that same market so we can help support those that may need code information, that are just struggling trying to figure out what it is. There's a lot of fire chiefs that know there's a fire code book out there but have never opened it. We want to be able to help them understand it.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about how what IFMA means to Minnesota. And Tom, you were part of IFMA and part of the chapter's meetings before you came on the board, so you've got a little bit of a longer exposure to it. So, Lisa,
sure.
What I think this was your first time to the chapter's meeting. What did you think of your first chapter's meeting, being part of NFPA's conference and expo?
I was mind blown. I'll say it that way. I've never been to NFPA conference. That was pretty insane, where I had to actually schedule my day based on if I could get there or not, because it was so big. So I had to take different classes just because they were next to each other. Amazing. But from an IFMA standpoint, from that meeting, what a nice group of people. And as a newbie coming in, they were so warm and welcoming, and it was great to make contacts with people from other states and talk about their issues. It was quite an eye-opener, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Great. And Tom, you got your eyes opened a few years before. I mean,
Yep.
Minnesota's been a chapter, I don't know the date, but chapter 11 of 36 now. So you've been in the mix a little bit longer. What do you think of the benefit to the members of FMAM or individual fire marshals in Minnesota being connected with the IFMA group?
Sure. I think a lot of it is, IFMA brings a different perspective and a different scope. It opens up those doors to the other jurisdictions that were nearby. We've definitely talked at the membership meetings and the president's meetings about what happens in other states eventually makes it to everybody else. And to be able to get those heads up from Iowa or West Virginia or California that this legislative piece is moving forward is a great benefit to us locally and our people, so we can kind of get our fingers on the pulse and hopefully be in front of it and have some of that legwork done before that creeps into our area. The single staircase is a perfect example. Started in other jurisdictions, just kind of kept coming forward. We had some good legs on it up front. We were able to make some headway. Our code development process is completely through our building code division at the state. So it's under licensing and building. Department of Labor and Industry is where it's buried at. And we used to participate in a fire chief's code committee. Last year we created TAG committees, so they're starting to do technical advisory groups through DLI, and we were invited to be part of that TAG. So Lisa sat on a couple. We had several other members that were members of those different technical advisory groups that helped design, the next Minnesota Fire Code, the next building code, the correlation between the codes. We had a group of us that were on the technical advisory group for single stair. So we tried to get active in that and be part of that process and then take that back to our members and say, here's what we're doing, here's what's coming, here's some things you're going to see in here.
Well, I appreciate all that, and congratulations on all the successes you've had through the legislative and the financing process. But let's kind of try to land the plane here a little bit and talk about what may be on the horizon for Minnesota and what things you're looking forward to completing in the rest of this calendar year or maybe in 2027 to either of you.
Sure. I was just looking up some different things. We're definitely going to keep working with our legislative group on what happens in the off season, because we know there's still a lot of stuff happening in that world. We're open for registrations for our conference coming up here in September, so I think we're going to try to build that out as well as we can. We usually max that out with people, so that's good. We've got some great presenters this year that are just locally based. And then we're going to continue. Lisa's got a great program she's working on in December for medical gas systems, and then look at what we want to do next year and try to tie some of that stuff in. Our big meeting is in March. That's usually our longer training, and then our annual business meeting for elections and stuff. Then we do a June and a December meeting. We usually skip the September one because we've got our conference that almost overlays on it within a week. So we're already planning. We're already working forward to 2027 and what we're going to do. Trying to get out to the Chiefs Association this fall, do some marketing, get some more people in, and try to grow that membership base. And we've talked about mentorship programs. We've talked about doing some different things internally to offer people opportunities. So just there's always something on our radar.
What about you, Lisa? What are you looking forward to for the next year?
One of the big things that we started a while back with the state fire marshal now, before he was in the state fire marshal role, was food trucks and coming up with a unified form and inspection across the state. Our mobile food trucks are on wheels, so they come from the cities all the time up to Duluth, and my Duluth trucks go down there and they travel all over, and we're all doing the same inspection, and but yet we don't. So it'll pass in one jurisdiction but not another, even though the fire code is supposed to be the same. So it'd be really nice for all of us to get on the same page, to get some training and a unified form, and we're all inspecting to the same standards and expectations. And then it would make it much easier on our food trucks and hopefully help those smaller jurisdictions that don't have fire marshals. They know that those jurisdictions know that they're getting a truck that's been inspected somewhere else coming to them uniformly. So that's one of the projects that I'm hoping to keep moving forward is food trucks.
Look forward to hearing about the successes on that. Well, that kind of wraps us up, but I know there's been at least two things here that I think folks will be interested in. One is that food truck form. I know that that's a hot topic, pardon the pun, across many jurisdictions in many states, and I like the term SWIPE, stolen with integrity, pride, and enthusiasm. So if I can steal something that in Duluth or in Minnesota is working real well, and it's not copyrighted, I'm going to do just that, because reinventing the wheel can be kind of tough sometimes. So with that, how can folks get in touch with Tom, either you or Lisa, or should they get in touch through the association website? Is that the best way, or how can people get in touch with you all to say, hey, tell me more about this insurance money or this food truck initiative you guys have going on?
Well, we do have a webpage that has all of our contact info on it, so that is definitely a way. Google us and you'll find us. All of our board members should be on there. Otherwise, easiest for me is just a simple email, lconsie, you can see it on my shirt there, LCONSIE @duluthmn.gov.
That's a pretty simple one. Tom, how about you? What do you think?
Same thing, reach out, find me through the City of Shakopee's website. My link is on there for email. Everything's out there. Mine's a little bit longer than Lisa's, so it's going to take a little bit more to spell it out, so I'll let them do a little bit of Google searching, but or hit our website. All the contact stuff is on there. There is a quick email response link on there that goes to several of the board members that we can see, and we can certainly get back to you with whatever you're looking for.
Awesome. And what I'll do is I'll take the website and I'll put that in the link to the show notes as well. So if anybody's on the computer listening to this or on their phone, they can click on it right there and get to it easy enough rather than having to go through the Google process, which honestly isn't that tough either. So thanks. Anything else I missed or anything else you want to touch on before we sign off?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
We appreciate it, Robbie.
Awesome. Well,
Very much.
congratulations. Yeah, thanks. Congratulations, Tom and Lisa, for Chapter of the Year for 2026. I know, like I said, it's a small but mighty group up in Minnesota doing some good things around legislation and supporting their members and communities. If you need any more information that you don't have in the show notes, drop me an email. IFMA@nfpa.org is my email address. And make sure you follow along and do a subscribe to this podcast because it really does help share the message, share the word. And check us out on Facebook as well as Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So with that, I'll say thanks again to Lisa Consie from Duluth, Tom Pitschneider from Shakopee, both from Minnesota. Thank you guys very much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thank you.